Hello and welcome. Thank you for clicking on this video. This is a channel dedicated to mindful makeup consumption, and today I'm going to talk to you about all of the pans in my powder eyeshadows, or products that I use as powder eyeshadows. Before we start, let me just say that I don't actually consider hitting pan a goal in itself, because it doesn't tell you so much about how much of the product you've used, how much you still have left. So it's not something that I aspire to, hitting pan in itself, because the goal of my project here on YouTube is to use up all of the makeup that I had at the beginning of 2020. But anyway, I do enjoy hitting pan because it is evidence of the product getting used. So every time I see the silver pan shining through, I get a little bit excited, and hopefully I'll be able to convey my excitement to you by showing you my eyeshadow pans. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to go through all of my powder eyeshadows, all of my palettes, and I'm going to talk to you and show you the palette and the pans it has in it, or the eyeshadow and the pan if it has a pan. So I did a little bit of counting, and it turns out that I currently have 97 powder eyeshadows, and that includes other powder products that I use as eyeshadows. I'll start with a palette that doesn't have any pans yet. That's because it's brand new and I still haven't even opened it. So it's the Huda Beauty Nude Light, and it has 9 eyeshadows in it, hopefully, because I haven't opened it, and no pans as far as I know. Another palette that doesn't have any pans is another new one. This one I have used, but it's actually my newest palette that I got this year, and it has 5 eyeshadows in it. It's the Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette 5, number 09. So 5 eyeshadows, 0 pans. So here is where it gets a little bit interesting. This is my Zoeva Caramel Melange palette, and it has 6 eyeshadows and 4 pans. Next up is my Urban Decay Vice Reloaded palette. How shall I show it to you? Maybe like this. So 20 eyeshadows, 13 pans, and there's a good variety of pans, as you can see. Smaller pans, bigger pans, baby pans, adolescent pans. I'm excited to be getting good use out of it. Next up is another Urban Decay palette. It's the Electric palette, and I have 3 pans in it, which is quite exciting because the eyeshadows in this palette are quite densely packed, and also they're very pigmented, so I don't end up using a lot when I'm using this palette. But I have pan here, and there's a tiny little pan here in the blue eyeshadow, which is totally a drill pan, I admit, and it was the first pan that I hit in this palette because I just wanted to see how deep the eyeshadow is, and it turns out it's pretty deep. And also I'm using this one mainly as an eyeliner with a small pointed brush, so hence the pan size and shape. And the Electric palette contains 10 eyeshadows, so 10 eyeshadows, 3 pans. Next up is the Meat Matte Nude palette by The Balm, and it contains 9 eyeshadows, and I've hit 1 pan. So it's difficult to hit pan, but the good news is that the eyeshadows are pretty great in terms of quality. I use them quite often. Hopefully the quality won't deteriorate soon. The next palette that I'm going to show you is my Z palette, which contains the majority of my Naked 3 shadows. So 10 eyeshadows from the Naked 3 palette, because I used up 2 and I moved the rest here. And it also contains some eyeshadows here from the Sleek palette that I used to have. These two are Clinique eyeshadows, and this is a Colored Rain eyeshadow, and this one is by H&M. And the palette contains 19 eyeshadows at the moment, and I've got 11 pans in it. And the last palette that I'm going to show you is a contour powder palette. So technically not an eyeshadow palette, but I actually use most of the powders. A little bit of this powder just fell off. I can live without it. Still plenty of product left here, but I was just going to show you that I'm using most of those as eyeshadows or powder to set my eyeshadow primer with. Like this one I'm using for that purpose, and this one too. So the only powder that I'm currently using as a highlight is this one. So let's say that the palette contains 6 eyeshadows and I have a pan in 4 of those. Next up, I have 3 Fenty highlighter duos that I only use as eyeshadows. This is the first one. It's the duo containing Sandcastle and Minted Mojito. No pans here. This one actually has a pan in 7-Day Weekend. And this one doesn't have any pans yet. And here in my Stila Correct and Perfect palette, I have 2 powders that I'm going to use as eyeshadows again, or powders to set my eyeshadow primer with. And this one, the yellow one, has a little bit of pan showing. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, you can see it now, but it's accidental pan, so I'm not counting this. Now moving on to my single eyeshadows that are not in my Z palette. The first one and the newest one is this Sugar Pill Buttercup Cake eyeshadow, which is almost brand new. I bought it this year, a couple of months ago, so it doesn't have any pan showing. And neither do these two, which are some of my oldest eyeshadow palettes, if not the 2 oldest, and sadly still no pan in either. Next up is this eyeshadow by And Other Stories. It has a significant dip in it, but still no pan. And to end on a high note, this is a Chantecaille eyeshadow. It's in the shade Warm Champagne, and it has a little bit of pan in it. So I'm excited to see evidence of use in this one because it's pretty expensive. So it's a good thing, right, that I'm using it. So to sum up, 97 eyeshadows, and I've hit pan on 38 of those, which in terms of percentage is a little over 39%. You know what I'm really curious to see? I'm really curious to see when I will hit pan on all of the eyeshadows in my collection, and after hitting pan on all of the eyeshadows, how long it will take me to use them all up. Maybe 10 years? I don't know. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for staying till the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy my content, why don't you subscribe? Thank you so much one more time. Enjoy wearing your makeup, enjoy living your life. See you soon. Bye.